Spokane listens when business talks. Welcome to Business Talks, the region's only local business talk show with your host, Ryan McNeice. Business Talks is brought to you by our friends at STCU and Well Dressed Walrus. Now, let's get down to business with Business Talks.
Welcome to Business Talks. I'm Ryan McNeice, and we're here in the studio with Dr. Jacob Rooksby, new dean at Gonzaga Law School. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Great to be here.
A lot on your plate right now, making a big move, college at William & Mary, graduate school at University of Virginia, and recently coming from University of Duquesne. Tell me about what it's like to land here in Spokane and start over here with Gonzaga Law School.
Well, it's been a wonderful transition for us. So we moved from Pittsburgh about 5 weeks ago now, and it's just been phenomenal being in a place that is low humidity, blue skies, no traffic. These are all things that I was not used to coming from the
No traffic,
Eastern
even
Seaboard.
Spokane individuals, we complain about traffic now.
I joke when I'm late that I've run into traffic. I wait for people to call my bluff.
Yeah, or laugh, or you can't tell if they're serious or not.
Yeah.
As you embark on this new transition, Gonzaga Law School has been through a lot of trials and tribulations, and I can attest that folks that have been there in the last 10 years have done an amazing job to weather the storm nationally, locally, in terms of law schools, overall application to graduate schools. So as you embark on this new mission with Gonzaga Law, what do you foresee as some of the immediate issues to tackle?
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to say I think the school's in a terrific place right now, and that's a testament to the leadership of my predecessor, Dean Jane Korn, who did
Absolutely.
a phenomenal job of weathering the storm, as you put it. So there have been some major shifts and changes in legal education in the national market over the past 10 years. And Gonzaga has, like all schools, been a part of those shifting dynamics. And the one is the demand for a JD education. We've seen over the past 10 years the number of LSAT takers, LSAT, so that's the test you have to take to become eligible to go to law school, has gone down by about 50%. At the same time, if you look back historically, going back to 1980, we have 20 more law schools nationwide. So you have more law schools competing for fewer students.
Right.
And so everyone has had to be creative, I think, in finding ways to right-size their operation. And so Gonzaga was no different in going through some of those challenging times. The good news is we are in a very excellent position right now, a sustainable position. We have a phenomenal faculty, and our programs are really flourishing. So I'm excited about where we are.
Well, I think you make a good point, Jacob, that some of the issues that were occurring at Gonzaga Law from a strategic standpoint weren't unique to Gonzaga. As you indicated, it was a national issue with a 50% reduction in some of the graduate school and or law school apps. So it did appear Gonzaga really stepped up to make some strategic moves to be in a good spot, as you're indicating they are now.
Absolutely, and one of the benefits is that we are in this beautiful part of the state by ourselves without any close direct competitors nearby. So we can be a leader in the region quite naturally in providing attorneys in our region, but also nationally building on a reputation as a Jesuit institution, as an institution committed to social justice. These are real selling points, particularly as students look at other options that may be public law schools.
Well, and I think you've mentioned, I would say one of the key issues that you're interested in promoting is having the law school and faculty, administration, students, et cetera, reach into the community, if you will, and create an engagement or dynamic. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I think the challenges for law schools historically can really be traced back to they kind of built themselves as palaces that were isolated from the rest of the universities of which they were a part.
Right.
And they did this because there were so many students going to those law schools that they didn't have to concern themselves with the rest of the university. And for faculty and administrators at those law schools, the university began and ended with the law school. Those days are behind us. And, in my background, I have a degree in education in addition to a law degree. So I'm very interested in how the pieces of higher ed kind of fit together.
Right. That
and
nexus.
I think there's so many opportunities here to bring Gonzaga better into the university community, more fully into the university community. So we're starting to do that in terms of putting on collaborative programming, thinking of interdisciplinary events that we can host and collaborate on together.
Yeah.
So that's one aspect of it. The other is law schools that have been isolated from their communities tend to suffer in the long haul. And fortunately, we're not in that position. Gonzaga has always been a flagship institution in this region and well known in this region. But I want to make sure that we continue to push our students, our programming, our faculty out into the community as much as possible. And you see that through our clinical work. You see that through some of the educational events that we put on campus. And we're going to start doing things actually downtown in Spokane. So in early October, I believe October 3rd, we're going to have our third annual legal summit. And for the first time, this event is going to be downtown. So attorneys can easily come and participate in this event. It's actually going to be in the Spokane Club.
I think it's a great venue. But I think as you're describing that engagement, whether it is in Spokane or the other areas that law schools are placed throughout the country, I think that is such an important factor to bring not only the community but the different industries that are prominent in a given town. Obviously in Spokane, the healthcare industry is one of our major employers, and you've spoken to that as well. Your spouse is a physician. With the UW and Washington State and University District, there's a good opportunity to create engagement there as well.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that drew me to this opportunity was the fact that this is a community that has a lot to offer in terms of the legal community, the medical community, social services community, the business community. These are all vibrant parts of Spokane that we're going to be tapping into and already have. We have obviously a relationship that's been ongoing in the medical community and some collaborations there. So all of these are things that I look forward to kind of kicking into the next gear as we look into the next few years here at Gonzaga.
Well, I think another point you're making too is whether a law school has set itself apart from the general population. And I think to that point, once the community understands what type of talent and the scholars that are at Gonzaga Law and or the main campus, I've found it interesting to really look deeper at the individual faculty members that you have on the team. And it's very impressive, very diverse, not only nationally, internationally. But I do think that's an interesting point here in Spokane that isn't probably communicated enough, is the talent that's on that team.
Absolutely, and I see that as part of my job is to kind of tell that story and to celebrate that story, because you're absolutely right. We have a phenomenal array of faculty who are doing amazing things. And I think it's the typical faculty mindset that you do your work, but you're not necessarily in the business of promoting yourself and getting the recognition that folks in other lines of work would be doing when they're doing something really great. So I see that as part of my job, to provide some of the attention that should be going to our faculty for the amazing things that they're doing. I'll give you an example. Professor Jason Gilmer wrote a book that's out, has recently been published. We're going to have a book event for him in August. No faculty member asks for a book event, right? You publish a book and you don't say, "Where is my book party?" But this is something we wanted to do to recognize him. His center, by the way, the Center for Civil and Human Rights, is off to an excellent start and really attracting a lot of national attention. On September 28th, we're going to have our official opening and launch of the center with a full-day symposium at the law school. Members of the community are invited to attend that, and we have an all-star cast of folks who are going to be coming and participating in panel discussions throughout the day, keynote speeches and dinners. So it's really shaping up to be quite something.
Well, and I think Gonzaga Law, Gonzaga University are a microcosm for Spokane in the sense that great things are happening here in Spokane. Great things are happening on the main campus. Great things are happening at the law school. But I think, as you just pointed out, they're happening actually on a national level. They're happening on a local level, national, and international level. And the opportunity to promote that, whether it be the faculty or otherwise, is is exciting.
I think President Thane McCullough has done an excellent job in encouraging all of us to think big and to think bigger. And we saw this in April. I was out here. It had just been announced that I was going to be the next dean, but we hadn't fully moved out here yet. But we came out for the presidential speaker series.
Right.
And, of course, that's where Ronan Farrow and the founder of the Me Too movement participated. And we were immediately, blown away, my wife and I, by the fact that these are nationally prominent people who are coming to Spokane to participate in these educational events. And I think that just speaks to his vision for this university.
I think so too.
But it's also a testament to the hard work of everyone, faculty and staff, who are so excited about these kinds of events. We spoke a little bit about interdisciplinary collaborations, and I just wanted to give an example of that. Right. Our School of Education and our law school are collaborating on an event on October 8th that we're going to have in the Hemmingson Center that is tackling the subject of safety in schools. And there could be no more important topic, I think, as we think to our K through 12 educational system. And so we're going to have a panel of speakers, including from the legal perspective, but also a school teacher, a school superintendent, a school safety officer, address an audience that we're anticipating will be in the hundreds of people. And headlining that event is a survivor of the Virginia Tech shooting from over 10 years ago, who she's coming in to actually put a human face on this kind of tragedy.
Amazing credibility, obviously.
Exactly, and lead the discussion. So I think it's going to be an excellent event, but it's an example of the kinds of things that we're doing that I think can be of service to the community and also deepen our connections in other schools across campus.
And I think as you describe that, I think what really stands out to me is, and what's exciting about the hope and excitement of the law school, is how you really are creating that nexus between not only your passion as a lawyer, but as you indicated, you also have a PhD, and your passion for the legal education. Because to a certain extent, they can be two things. As a law school, you are in the business of providing legal education to folks that are going to take that education into nonprofit, governmental entities, private practice. But you yourself have written a book and are passionate about creating and providing what these students need in this specific generation, which is different.
Yeah.
And I do want to note the actual title to the book. The book you wrote is The Branding of the American Mind, How Universities Capture, Manage, and Monetize Intellectual Property and Why It Matters. But also
available at fine booksellers everywhere, including Amazon.com.
Exactly. And then also writing a treatise on the law of higher education, which is what we're talking about. We're talking about how do you reach and engage with this next generation of students.
Yeah.
It isn't the student of 25 years ago necessarily, but blending that.
So this is, I think you're putting your finger on, it's a story of innovation and change in higher education. And higher education has often been rightly critiqued, I think, for moving at a glacial pace.
Right.
Although we have to be careful about that analogy these days, because some glaciers are going away rather quickly. But we have to innovate and rethink what we're doing in order to reach new audiences and to prepare students for the future. The law is this black box historical kind of concept.
Yeah.
And that's important that students learn about the history and evolution of important legal topics, but we also have to be preparing them for what's coming tomorrow. Artificial intelligence is going to drastically change our practice, our profession, and the world writ large. How are we preparing students to understand that? New technology. I was just yesterday in Tacoma in the law office of one of our alums. This attorney's practice, it's about a 5-person firm. They have no paper. They've gone completely paperless. Everything is stored in the cloud. Yeah, it's very hard to do, but they're committed to doing it, and that's the future of law. And so we have to be thinking about these things, cognizant of these trends and changes as we think about how we're educating students today.
What's the phrase? We have to know history to be able to change it. And that's so true. You have to have, as you said, you have to respect it. You have to have the respect for history to be able to accommodate necessary change. Let's take a short break and come right back and talk to Dr. Rooksby about legal education. Not only legal education, but the business of legal education. Thank you.
Your home is unique, and you deserve an assessor that understands Spokane real estate home values. I'm Realtor Leonard Christian, and I'm running to be your next county assessor. I served our nation for over 20 years in the United States Air Force and as a Washington State representative. I have the education, skills, and experience needed to be your next county assessor, and I encourage you to find out more at leonardchristianforassessor.com. People matter, and you deserve a leader who listens. It's time to elect Leonard Christian for Spokane County Assessor, paid for by Leonard Christian for Assessor.
Hi, this is Kurt Stockwell with Well Dressed Walrus. We are a local website design and development company here in Spokane. What we do is build beautiful, usable websites for local businesses. A website needs to be beautiful, it needs to be usable for your users, your customers, and yourself. Contact us anytime. We'd love to talk with you about your online marketing.
The following is sponsored by our friends and community supporters at McNeice Wheeler Attorneys. McNeice Wheeler is a boutique law firm in Spokane, handling matters in both Washington and Idaho. Areas of law include business law, wills, trusts and estates, family law, personal injury and wrongful death, and real estate matters. For your full-service legal needs, contact McNeice Wheeler Attorneys.
The economy is getting stronger, banks are lending again, and interest rates are at historic lows. Now is a great time to buy your dream home. The caring and knowledgeable professionals at Homes for You have been helping people just like you for over 20 years. They take the time to listen to what you want and will help you find just the right home in Washington or Idaho. Real estate is what we do at Homes for You, 928-5782, or visit online at homes4uspokane.com.
Welcome back to Business Talks. I'm Ryan McNeice and Dr. Rooksby. We're chatting about legal education, the changes, the programs that are bringing in those changes. Tell me more about your strategy or ideas to see this transformation at Gonzaga Law.
Right. So one of the things that we're facing is that, we have a declining number of students nationwide who are interested in pursuing a JD. The JD is always going to be the flagship offering of any law school, including Gonzaga. But we have to start looking at other programs that we can offer that are of interest to students. Certificate programs, for example.
So not necessarily a degree, but a certificate.
Not necessarily a degree. I make the analogy that, the law degree is like, if we think about cars, we're selling somebody a car. It's a very durable product that you can use to go in any direction.
How you want to use it sometimes is your choice.
Exactly.
Right.
But that's the nice thing about a car. You own a car, you can take it 2 miles, you can take it 2,000, you can go northwest, wherever you want to go. Some students and some people who are in other walks of life, in business, for example, they don't need a law degree, but what they need is a little bit of legal education. So I think it's like Uber.
Yeah.
Right? You just need a lift. I'm not looking to go from A to Z. I'm looking to go from A to C.
Right.
And can you help me get there? I don't need to buy the car. I just need some just-in-time education of a legal nature.
Absolutely.
To help me get that promotion at work, to help me understand this changing market that I'm dealing with, to help me start my business, for example. So one of the things that we're going to be doing is looking at what are some of the opportunities in the realm of certificate programs, for example, or continuing legal education that we can provide to students who are not JD students.
Yeah, I think that's critical.
Yeah, and a couple of things that come to mind, obviously healthcare being a big industry in this region, healthcare compliance, intellectual property law, of course, and one thing that we're looking at is wine law.
Yeah.
Because of the region's focus on agriculture and growing notoriety for wine.
Well, and I mean, just simply from a business standpoint, whether, as you indicated, whether you're talking about the healthcare industry, the wine industry, those certifications, the elements of those respective industries are just as much business as any industry. You have the elements and fundamental principles of business that you're either, whether it be a law student that you're providing those certificates to, or I think as you're indicating, folks coming from the community that want certificates on campus.
Exactly, and so I think a great example of how this has really succeeded in another realm is our School of Leadership, which has a number of certificate programs. They have one on women in leadership that they have just advertised, and my understanding from talking with the dean there is it has been oversubscribed. Lots of interest in that kind of program.
Is it my understanding that there's a certificate, a master's, and a PhD program in leadership?
Exactly, and I think that's a school, for example, where there are natural synergies to draw into a legal educational program.
Right.
I talked with students as I interviewed here who said, I want to go start my own practice. Law school has taught me the law, but what I need are the entrepreneurial skills, the leadership skills to really, kick that into high gear.
Well, and Gonzaga has done this for quite a while, but you guys continue to promote the joint MBA JD, which for the same critical reasons, whether you're going to be in that wine business, healthcare, et cetera.
Exactly. Law is an applied profession, so you have to know the law, but you have to know other industries and sectors of life as well. And for students who are coming right out of undergrad, who maybe haven't had that first job experience, we have to provide some real-world education in law school that enables them to understand different industries and sectors that they may be coming into contact with. In other schools, like a business school and a leadership school, they do that already. So I really want to see us try to find ways to break down barriers between disciplines.
And integrate those respective programs. Yeah, I see it, I believe, in private practice up close, that even if you break down even further the microcosm within a private practice in terms of whether it be family law, business litigation, business transactions, if you just would micro-focus on one of those, I don't think you're doing a client justice, but rather all of those areas or genres of law interact.
Well, what we're trying to do in all of education is cultivate curiosity. And what inspires me about our Jesuit mission is it's cultivate that curiosity, educate the whole person, and send them out to set the world on fire. And if we can do that, we're succeeding. And I think you're a great example of that, a lifelong learner. You practice law, but you also have this show. These are the kinds of things that we want to inspire people to do in their time with us at Gonzaga. And partly we do that by introducing them to other disciplines, to other fields, to other sectors, bringing that into the classroom in a way that can be valuable.
Well, my personal experience at Gonzaga, the respective professors that are still there are doing that. They're doing that. They are certainly training, and in essence, it's a trade school. We are training lawyers to be able to provide services in the community, but it's much, much more than that. I think, as you're saying, you're training the whole mind. Not just what is necessary to pass the bar, so to speak, but what is necessary to be I think, a valuable member of our society.
Well, to go back to this topic of change in higher education, we are really trying to meet students where they are today, and that's many businesses are doing this, right? Higher ed has been somewhat slow to do that.
But it's a big comment.
Yeah, it's usually been, here's what we offer, and you come to us, and that's how we do it. Well, we're reaching out to students now in new ways on social media, for example. So I've opened an Instagram account, Zag Law Dean, where I interact with students in order to showcase some of the great things that we're doing at Gonzaga Law School. So the hope is prospective students see this, current students, alumni, and it's a way of staying engaged with the institution.
I was just going to say the same. The fact that you've done that, though, is symbolically showing your desire to engage, but engage at all levels. Right. Engage with the student, with faculty.
When you and I went to law school, we probably applied to law school and we waited for that shiny packet to come in the mail.
Absolutely.
These days, students, seldom check their mailboxes, and so we're having to find, better ways to reach out to them. My hat's off to our admissions team that this year started communicating with our prospective students via text message. So students actually are communicating with us via text, which is, of course, the primary mode of communication.
Yeah, I've heard that the millennials aren't emailing as much. And you're thinking, I thought email just got here.
Right. So these are all elements of change in terms of how we think about our communication strategy, how we think about our brand. It's much more interactive.
Right.
It used to be you turned over your brand management to one person or a firm that did this for you, and no one could interact with it. If we think of the interactivity that comes through Facebook, now Twitter, Instagram, we're co-creating this brand with our students.
Well, and you're in a position with your faculty, with staff, and yourself in your position to know the pulse. You have your finger on the pulse. So if that is contracted out, I think you lose a bit of that vibrance.
Yeah, it's very interactive and it's changing. It's not static as it was in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, where this is the brand, this is the message, and no one can change it until next season.
Yeah.
Right? We're able to, for example, test out certain images to see what is resonating with our audience.
And what does that image say?
Exactly. So one of the things that I've noticed coming and moving across country is that we're not taking advantage fully of the beauty of this place in our advertising of it.
We're not selling a big piece of what it is.
Exactly.
Right,
I mean, there are
saying.
students who, when looking at their options for law school, it comes down to where do I want to spend 3 years?
And potentially, and we could talk about this for a whole nother segment, once you're here for 3 years and interacting with the community and engaging these law students, whether it is healthcare or private practice, governmental, they're actually doing internships, externships here. There's a good chance they're going to stay here.
Exactly. So I saw this on a different seaboard part of the country in my own life. When I was graduating from law school, went to the University of Virginia, I decided to stay in Virginia and practice in Richmond. People thought I was crazy because I wasn't going to the big city of Washington, D.C. or New York, where many of my classmates were going for their first jobs. But what I found in this city of Richmond, which I wasn't from, had never really spent that much time, but my wife was doing a medical residency there, was that it was livable. It was easy. You could get to work, in short time. You had nice restaurants and cultural things to see and do.
Potentially analogous to Spokane.
Exactly. You could buy a house. These are the kinds of things that are really attractive to new attorneys. So if we can start to position Spokane in the same way, but part of that's selling the place.
Absolutely.
Right? Saying you can live here, build a life, build a family, and be comfortable.
What's one of the taglines? I think one of the chambers, near nature, near perfect. I'm sure you saw it probably as you were searching the area, and I would wager that is true.
Absolutely.
Well, before we run out of time, I do want to let individuals know where they can find your book, because as we're talking about here, there are going to be trials and tribulations over your term here at Gonzaga, but there's a lot of excitement, a lot of hope, a lot of things, I think, going in the school's favor. But in terms of legal education and the nuances of legal education, where can individuals find your book on IP, et cetera?
Yeah, so the book is on intellectual property, which I know many would then say, oh, I don't want to read it. But the whole point of the book is that intellectual property is for everyone. It's not just some arcane legal topic that's not of importance.
In theory, some theory up here.
Exactly.
It's actually practical.
Yeah, and so it's sort of telling the story of change that's going on in higher education. It's really a story about business and how institutions are using intellectual property in ways to further their business interests. And sometimes I make the point in the book, they're using intellectual property in inappropriate ways. So I believe that higher education is a public good. I believe in the public interest in higher education, and that's why we're all working in this special sector. So what frustrates me sometimes is when an institution, not Gonzaga, but other universities, have used intellectual property in a way that constrains the public good. So we're talking about trademarks, copyrights, patents. It's really a book about stories, and it's telling stories about how these pieces fit together in the broader business sector.
To promote rather than inhibit.
Exactly. And so, we talk about the patenting of human genes, for example, which has clear ramifications on all of us in terms of the healthcare services that we can receive. Talk about the trademarking going on by certain institutions of different portions of their operations and how that affects businesses, actually, and can inhibit businesses. I've seen this firsthand, by the way, in my practice as an attorney. Often a business was very surprised to learn that a higher education institution owned a trademark or owned a patent and was potentially going to enforce it against them. And they were saying, well, wait a second. We pay taxes to subsidize this state institution, this public university. Why are they wielding this piece of intellectual property against me?
Absolutely.
And often that's a very valid question. So the book digs into that.
I think that's a fascinating concept. I think I'm correct on the fact that Texas A&M actually owns the 12th man.
That's right.
And of course, goes without saying, the
They,
Seahawks.
Yes. So they have sought to enforce that
Absolutely.
trademark against professional football teams.
It's an interesting case.
Boise State owns a trademark for the color blue
Yep,
on
Smurf
an
turf.
intercollegiate playing field. They've used that to enforce against high schools that are using colors other than blue on their playing fields. So some things that are not, appropriate.
Well, real life ramifications.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have you come back and let's discuss that piece, intellectual property, as you said, patents, trademarks, copyrights, et cetera, a multitude of fascinating topics. Thank you, Dr. Rooksby, for being here.
It's been my pleasure,
I appreciate
Ryan.
it. Good luck.
Thank you. Good talking with you.
Business Talks is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksOnline.com, which is solely responsible for its content. Ask a question, recommend a guest, and hear this program again online anytime at SpokaneTalksOnline.com. Business Talks is brought to you by our friends at STCU and Well Dressed Walrus. Business Talks wishes you good business and a good day.